Welcome to the Fort Myers Beach Good Neighbor, Before the Storm series, a community series sponsored by Building Science Authority and Bailey's Generators. Here in Florida, storm season is a part of life, and being prepared can make all the difference. In this series, we'll share practical tips, trusted insight, and important steps you can take to protect your home, power your essentials, and keep your family safe. So join us as we help you get ready, stay informed, and prepare before the storm.
Welcome, Fort Myers Beach Good Neighbors, to the Before the Storm series, a new series that we have created here with Shane Bailey from Building Science Authority. Welcome, Shane.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about this because, as we know, storms are a big deal down here in Southwest Florida, and we've had a number of them recently. So anything we can do to prepare and be ready for these beforehand helps everybody out.
We totally agree. And what we find is the number one thing I should say up front, if you don't mind, is the fact that if you have read your entire insurance policy, raise your hand. By the way, if your hand's not up, you're already working from a negative. So we urge you to get your policies out and read them and understand them. Does that make sense?
That makes sense because, yeah, a lot of people, I have insurance, I'm covered, but not necessarily. You got to read the fine details, right?
Correct. Yeah. And I literally 99.5 out of the 100 homes or businesses we go to do not know what coverage they have.
So along with the name of the series, Before the Storm, what should people be doing before the storm arrives?
Number one, know your coverages. Number two, know any exclusions that your policy has. Number three, document. No, it's funny. Document your property. It is so easy to walk around with a camera or even a video camera and document it. And even perishables or what do they call family items that are handed down over time. Those things are imperative to video. If you have expensive jewelry, have the jewelry setting there plus the receipts and videotape the receipts of what the jewelry costs. It's the number one thing that the insurance company doesn't know or doesn't know to believe, that if you don't do it, how are they going to know to believe it? Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And they're probably not the most with coming forward with saying, hey, you should do this before a storm comes, because
I believe it's in most policies, but it's in really small.
Right, that's what I mean. They're not emphasizing. They're not emphasizing it and making sure you do that because, hey, you don't have anything, they don't have to pay out, right? Not the insurance companies are bad, but
No, we're going to talk. We want to make sure we do have some great insurance friends out there.
Yeah.
But part of protecting your property is doing this beforehand, and I can't stress enough. We find that 99% of the time people don't do this, and it's such an easy thing. Take you and your wife can do it. Walk around the house, have a great time, taking photos of all these images, or reminiscing over them. You want to see where your walls are, how they're done, any damages that you can see. Don't be afraid to take those pictures. And here's the reason why: a lot of insurance policies have a caveat in them. If the storm comes and makes damage bigger, it's still coverable. So if it takes a small damage, makes it a big damage, still coverable. A lot of people don't know that. So protecting yourself, protecting your policy, protecting yourself for a successful insurance claim is number one. And if you do those, we can do a lot more with your insurance claim than you can by yourself.
And talking about prepping for a storm, I mean, we're in a storm-prone area here in Southwest Florida, right? Power outages could last, several days, several weeks, depending on where you're at. Why is all this important to prepare beforehand to make it through those days after a storm?
My uncle, a little idiom he used to say, is better to have and not need than need and not have. So number one is your insurance policy. Most of them speak, in my experience, to the fact that you're obligated, because you have insurance and it's your home, you're obligated to, after a storm, immediately after, start working on balancing your building. All that means is a fancy word for you're required to start figuring out how to get air conditioning turned on. If there's water in there, getting the water out, even if you push it out. Now, we don't advise you going and helping your neighbors and other people because that water is then contaminated once it leaves your house. But that's the number one thing is understanding what the insurance company looks for. Because remember, they're in a building somewhere far away. They don't know what they're looking at. So if you took those pictures like we asked you to do ahead of time, the next thing then is once you start balancing or before, take some more pictures. And then after you do that, take some more pictures. And we have this saying in our industry, in the storm industry, pictures are free. And really what happens, you start documenting, here's what it looked like beforehand, here's what it looked like after the storm, and here's what it looked like after we start to clean up. It's amazing. It changes their outlook because, unfortunately, they get lied to a lot. And so what we need to do is show them, here's the proof. Pretend you're from the show me state.
Yeah, right. Yep.
We want to show what you have. My house is beautiful. Look at this thing. My grandmother's heirloom. You can't replace it, and we want to document the living daylights out, if I can say that.
Like you said, periodical pictures help as well too, because a lot of that damage sometimes happens after the fact, after the storm, right? The mold starts to set in, the water starts to cause issues and things like that. A lot of that stuff happens after the storm.
Boy, you're so right on that. And I'll tell you why, Jim. The biggest thing we find is, one, we live in what's called climate zone number one. It's the jungle here. That's what we have. High humidity, high heat. You add that to being without air conditioner, mold can grow within 12 to 72 hours, depending on where the spore is, what kind of spore it is. And outages can last like days to even weeks. So we want to make sure that we are doing whatever we can to try to get that building under air conditioning, your house. And understanding too, insurance claims are often delayed, so you don't have to rush to call your agent. That would be the next thing I would say. Once you document all these things, I think the next phone call that will help you is to find people who work these types of storms for a living. This is what they do all the time. They're not afraid of this. They've worked with insurance companies. They should have a good reputation with the insurance company, but they should also be certified third party. You don't want to be biased in any way. So third party inspections, third party people to come in and take a look at your home, document it, do moisture meters, all those things that we'll go into in later on the series. But that would be the next thing. You want to call the professionals in. Remember, the insurance companies are going to have thousands of calls in your area. And so if you wait a day or two, it doesn't matter at all. But because you need to find out what your claim actually is. What people do is they'll call in, they'll say, yeah, I have a claim. Well, what's damaged? I don't know. Did the water come up a foot, 2 foot? I don't know. And so really there's no sense of starting something that you don't know. Whereas what we do and what a good professional would do, would you start stacking documents up? Here's your moisture meter readings. Here's your dry out readings. Here's your dehumidifier readings. All these things, this is when it was placed. This is how often it was checked. And all those things matter because it proves to the point to the carrier, hey, they're not fibbing. They're playing well in the sandbox, right? And what it does is it makes a higher success rate in your claim. We hear people complain all the time. And by the way, another show of hands. If you're raising your hands, how many times have you hear someone say, I didn't get what I needed from my claim? And sometimes that's shame on us. Sometimes it's shame on the carrier. But that's the number point is to get a professional in your house right away or building.
Well, because one of the points we bring up is documentation, not damage severity, determines your payout, right?
Yes, that is a great way to remind me that I need to say that more often to myself, because we get so involved in these events that we tend to know what we're talking about, and we also we pass over some things mentally if we're not careful. So that's why we just had a continuing education class about going back to the time of the inspection and starting from the minute you get there all the way. See, hearing what you have to say is a number one. If someone's not, by the way, if someone's in your house, they're not listening to you, kick them out of your house because you're the one that lives there all the time. You have the most valuable information that we need to help prove your claim. So if you've taken the pictures before, during, and after, and you can show us that, if you even don't have them in a report, we can actually bring those into our report and say the client issued this at before the storm. The client issued this to us after the storm. These were after the storm images, and so on and so forth.
And that's the important part too. So prepare, I would say preparing, but documenting and saving that information. Maybe save that in several places. Save it in a safe spot, like they always say. Don't save it on your computer. That's going to get flooded, and now you're going to lose everything on your computer. Save it in a cloud somewhere where you have easy access to it after the storm, or somebody else has access to it. Correct?
That's a great idea because a lot of times, guess what happens? Your laptop gets fried.
Yep.
Especially if you have a flood. Also, create an inventory. If you really have stuff that you love and things that are expensive to you, or even keepsakes that you can't replace, document those things, put an inventory on it.
Get them evaluated for price and value.
That's another great thing to do.
Right. Yeah.
Most jewelry you can take to any jeweler and they will give you an assessment on them, a sort of value. To say, I need it for insurance, because if you say you're selling it, they're going to try to give you less. But if you say, this is for insurance, can you give me a valuation of this jewelry, especially if you have high-end items? So again, first thing, try to get a generator in your house if you don't have one, because then you can run AC. Document. Do an inventory. Make sure your critical systems have a way to turn on as soon as the power comes back. Those are all perfect inroads for me to, or someone like myself, to come in. And if I have that, you have done such a service for yourself and your agent. We joke about an agent has two piles on their desk. One is all the thin files that aren't proven, and those go right to the rejection folder, and then they have the thick files that are proven, and they either approve those or say that that's going to go to our litigation team, and you want to be in that second pile. You want to be either, hey, we're gonna litigate this, we want to review it further, or no, we're just going to go ahead and approve it.
Very good. And now, getting to the point of choosing the right inspector, what should people be looking for?
That's one of the toughest questions we have. Just like any occupation out there, there's some good players and there's some bad players. We stay away from the companies that are in business all the time to do it and that don't come in from outside the state. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. We think if they're here and they're living here, that's they're more prone to being on your side. But what matters more than any of that is their resume. Ask them for their resume. Ask them for their CV, if you will. They should have a plethora of things on their resume you never even heard of, like building science investigator, balancing the building envelope inspections. All those things, you want to see that they are aware of what they're doing. Everyone has LinkedIn on their phone. Go to their LinkedIn page. They don't have a LinkedIn page, I'm suspect. If they work for a company, go to that company LinkedIn page. But if you find a great investigator, that might be another thing we should talk about, Jim, to be honest.
Yeah.
Why are we looking at the time when they're most busy? Maybe before a storm, a great prep would be, I just thought of this.
Yep.
Why don't you call around? Look for building scientists in your area. That would be the number one thing. And it'll give you a list of people who say that in their advertising. And then call them. Who's a good remediation company? Who do you use for testing? All those things. And they should be able to give you that for free.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Again, that shouldn't take them long.
It's part of the prep, right? It's part of the prep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. So what are some of the mistakes people should avoid making? What are the most common mistakes? I want to say you've probably seen a lot.
All right. Some of it's going to be a little repetitive, so please bear with us in the sense of one, not knowing their policy limits,
Yeah.
not knowing what it covers and doesn't cover. Two, would probably be calling the insurance company way too soon when you don't know what you're dealing with yet. Sometimes they'll call, let me give you a quick example, if I may, on that. You know, if you have, most people in their brain, they don't want their house to be damaged. So the first thing they're thinking, oh, I don't have a lot of damage. That's not a good place to be in. That is an actual mistake. Get a professional out there to tell you that. You're not a contractor. You don't deal in water mitigation. You need someone out there to make sure you're doing that right. But
Well, it's like being in a car accident. I may feel fine, but then a week later, I'm like, all this internal stuff is going to show up, and I had no idea, right?
right. And it's a lot harder to go backward then to catch that than it is just to up front. So if you call though and you make a claim, and let's say you don't have a bad situation, and and the repair is actually a little, maybe, I don't know, within a certain percentage of your deductible, and you go and call them back and say, listen, I don't have that much damage. It's not really going to cover my deductible. I don't think I need to have an insurance claim. That still shows as a claim. It's a claim that was not paid out on, but it shows, you know, they have a main tree line of they all plug into, and they know exactly what you've claimed in that house and what you haven't. They know exactly, especially in this day of information.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then a lot of people will get rid of stuff or say, okay, that's damaged without documenting it, right?
That's another big one, you know, or they'll guess at the damage value.
Yeah.
They'll do some guessing. And you know how we are. We're human beings. We'll often think that means more to me or that has a higher value than it actually does. And you know, people bring their things into consignment shops and they say, oh, it's worth this. And the consignment, I can't get that for that, you know?
What's the pawnbrokers? I'll give you $2 for that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, you know, and part of that is maddening for us as the consumer. But you know what? There's also a lot of onus on us that we didn't perform properly. Documenting. Try to be factual, not emotional. Provide an organized document for us or whomever you use. And I would say another thing is, I'll tell you what, this could be the number one thing that people do after the storm is they don't get a third party independent person. What they do is they say, oh, well, I trust my insurance agent. And not that they're not trustworthy, but your insurance agent has zero control over your policy. Zero.
Yep.
He can't say, oh, go ahead and give him a break or make it a little bit more or cut that back. He can't even take a deduction on that. He's not in that place. He's just an agent. Not just an agent, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
So you need someone on your side that's third party independent that says, I'm not beholden to you, the homeowner. I'm not beholden to the carrier, but I report what I see and it's known in my industry, you know?
And like we had talked about before, not to bash our insurance friends out there, but the insurance companies are in business.
They are business. You're right. You know, and exactly. And we can only speak, I can't speak to policy. What I can speak to is my experience.
Yep.
And and put it to you this way, if you allow your wallet to stick out of your pocket, you're more likely to have it taken.
Yep.
Right. So let's not do that. Let's be protective. Let's know our surroundings and understanding. You know, just like you send your kid off to college and you're like thinking, what do you tell them when they go? Always know your surroundings, right? Know where you are. Go with a friend. Never leave that friend. All those things apply to this. Know where you're at with your insurance policy. Know where you're at. Have you chosen an inspection company already? You should have. You know, and have you inventoried your beautiful? I had a lady with China that was just unbelievable. The China cabinet fell.
No.
And she was just in tears. And it was really good China, but she didn't inventory it. She didn't have, how many pieces did you have? I don't know.
Well, now I got twice as many.
But I can only eat off this corner.
Right? But preparation is key, and that's your leverage to get, you know, some of that, I'm going to say that money back, but get the value for what these things are worth and get things fixed.
Sure. Yeah, another thing is license and credentials. That's one I forgot to put in there, if I may tuck that in.
Yep.
Everyone should be licensed to do this. And you want them to have what's called a WRT designation, water remediation technician, at least. They should have that, or the company should have that. We happen to have engineering license and electrical and construction licenses. We have people with all those licenses that can help. You're a person that you choose should have that reach as well. So that's the big thing. Other than that, you're on your way. If you do those things we started with, you're on your way to a great claim.
Yep. Yeah, and you mentioned it. Being licensed is important because you get a lot of, down here, we get a lot of storm chasers. People coming in from out of state, come here to grab the money, and they grab the money and leave, and nothing ever gets done.
That's the big one. That's the biggest one we see, what we find, hey, you can say things about the insurance company, but when we turn that mirror around and look at ourselves, first of all, a lot of people in a home don't know where to go to find if they are special approved by the governor, can approve a special situation where other people from other states can help. But they have to register with the state. And I believe that's through the governor's office. Well, no one knows where to go. So Jim, how are we going to look these people up? So what they do is then they end up choosing the guy who's knocking on doors, which, my gosh, that's a tough job. Wouldn't want to do it myself. But really, you're making the decision after the fact. And how well do you think that works in any other decisions you make? When you make a decision after the problem. So, use your guys are smart. Come on, do the little bit of work up front, and I guarantee you'll have amazing results. But number one, in my experience, is they're denied based on no documentation. That is bad. No documentation
is key. That is key.
Documentation is key. No matter what you do, take pictures before, during, and after. And I'm telling you, you'll want to buy me flowers because it's the most amazing thing you can do.
The more the better. The more the better.
The more the better. Yeah. So, and we'll have a whole mistakes to avoid in our later episodes. And I am like you, Jim. I'm really excited. I love what I do. There also is a huge negative when you see so much damage. It really hurts your heart as well. But my word, we can make so many people smile just by teaching them what to do up front. And even if they don't use us, the cool thing is they have learned a piece of the puzzle, so they can't get taken advantage of, or they can't be easy to pick up.
And that's what this whole series is about. It's about being prepared and just education. We're not
Before the
trying
storm.
to push anything or trying to sell anything. We just want to educate people on what they should do beforehand and help them make the right decisions.
Before the storm. I love it.
That's it. Well, Shane, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to speaking with you next time. Any last words for our listeners today?
No, I just say we would really appreciate you tuning in. We think we want to provide this service. We're not doing this for our health, and we're doing this to help you. And so tune in. Check his schedule, Jim's schedule, and find out when we're doing our next one, and tune in for us and let us know. If you got any feedback, I'm sure there's a way to contact him. Maybe someone wants to ask questions. Is there a way they can do that, Jim?
Absolutely. Reach out to us on our website, and I'll put our email in the bio down here, and they can send that out here. Or there are certain topics they want us to touch on. By all means, send that.
That would be great.
Yep.
I would be thrilled for that. That would be amazing for us to do. Let's try that.
We could do that. We absolutely. But this is going to go. We're going to let people decide what direction we go with this. So,
all right.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. But again, thank you, Shane, for being part of this and pushing me to get this done. And I'm glad you're part of it.
Thank you. The pleasure's mine.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you for being with us for the Fort Myers Beach Good Neighbor Before the Storm series, proudly sponsored by Building Science Authority and Bailey's Generators. We're glad to share this series with you as we help our community get ready for Florida's storm season. We'll see you next time with more tips, insight, and resources to help you stay safe, informed, and prepared before the storm. Until next time, remember to Cabo until you wabo and keep being a good neighbor.